Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about What If Deku's story unfolded differently part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content. And leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. So let's start the video. The first incident was in Qingqin City, China, with news of the birth of a miraculous child who radiated light. Shortly thereafter, similar phenomena popped up all over the world. The trigger for these newfound powers was never determined. But as time progressed, what was once extraordinary became ordinary. Dreams became reality. Of the planet's population, around 80% have developed unique abilities, or quirks. We have entered a new age, a society of superhuman. In this world whirling in chaos, a certain profession that used to exist only in daydreams has stepped into the limelight, that of the hero. But honey, you do still want to be a hero, don't you? My father, the flame hero 𝗵𝗃, is the number 2 hero. He's been the second place forever, always one step behind the number 1. 𝐒𝐽𝐺, the world's greatest hero. He's made a name for himself, nonetheless, and with his power, he was able to devise a plan to finally surpass 𝐒𝐽𝐺, once and for all. You may have heard of Quirk marriages. Most people treat them like some outdated model of power that nobody does anymore. But among the elites, there are some people who still practice them, choosing mates just to create powerful offspring. Like old-fashioned arranged marriages, forcing people into relationships. My mother was one of these people. My father easy bought off her family and got his hands on her powerful ice quirk. He hoped to create a perfect hybrid, a hero powerful enough, with ice and fire perfectly balanced, to one day surpass 𝐒𝐽𝐺. It's okay, 𝗧𝗪. I was 5 years old, kneeling on the floor of the training room, and vomiting. He was standing over me. Stand up. If you go down to a blow that size, you can forget about beating 𝐒𝐽𝐺, or even some small-time thug. Her touch was on my back. Her soft hands were the tiniest barrier, the shield between me and the onslaught of rage and power that came from 𝐒𝐽𝐺. Please, stop pushing him. He's only 5 years old. He's already 5. Get out of my way. My tears kept coming as his hand slapped across Mom's face and she fell backwards. Later on that day I was in her lap as she held me, over my bed. I hate this, Mommy. I don't want to be the kind of guy he is. I don't want to be someone who bullies Mommy. I can't stand the thought of ever being anything like my damned old man. He's a monster, I believe. Sometimes, I look in the mirror at the flaming red-haired and blue-eyed side of my face and I see a flash of him. Like if even for a moment I see myself looking angry, it will be the start of something, and my face will twist into that awful mask that is his awful face, that hateful man. But honey, you do still want to be a hero, right? She asked me, hand on my right-hand side. When I see my right side in the mirror, I see her. Her gray, kind eyes, her long soft white hair, the ice powers she uses from time to time, her gentle smile and kindly, sparkling goodness. All the things that I want to be, on only one side of my face and one side of my body. I have 3 older siblings. He tried 3 times before he finally got me. He calls them his failures, and I'm not allowed to speak to them. I know their names, Fayumi, Natsuo, and Toya, but I don't know anything else about them. One day I saw them playing ball in the yard of our home, through the window. I wanted nothing more than to go out and join them. He saw me, sneaking that forbidden look, and seized my arm, his hand like a vice grip, and dragged me away from the window. Don't look at them, 𝗧𝗪. Those things, your older siblings, they live in a different world than the one I'm training you for. That's what he calls his older children, and I actually envy them. I'd rather be one of those things, one more failure, than what I am. The perfect student, the dream child who he spends all his time training. Mom, I think I might be going crazy. I can't take it anymore. Every day, the children look more and more like him. It was nighttime. I wandered out of bed, crying already from the memories of today's training, hoping to find Mom. She was in the kitchen, making tea, on the phone with Grandma, and I heard her say those words. 𝗧𝗪. That child's left side sometimes looks unbearable to me. Those words hit me so hard, so badly. I always feared, deep down, I was afraid that she saw me, that side of my face, the same way that I did. But I'd hoped this was just my imagination. I was just paranoid, right? She didn't really see me that way, She couldn't. Right? I can't take care of him anymore. I'm afraid can't raise me anymore. What did she mean? Was she going away? No, I couldn't. I knew I couldn't stand life without her, if she left us, if she went away. Even when she sometimes went away on weekend trips, those few days without Mom were terrifying. There was no relief at all. I had to finally say something. Mom, what are you saying? She turned to look at me. There was a look in her face, like I had never imagined could be on it. She was looking at me then like I was my father. No, worse than my father. She'd seized the boiling water and thrown it on my left side before I could say a thing. All I really remember was a burning pain. I was lucky enough to pass out before too long. When I woke up, I was in a hospital and I couldn't see out of my left eye. My face was covered in bandages. He was there, watching over me. But she wasn't. I remember tossing and turning in nightmares for a while, until he finally got me back to the house. I kept waiting and waiting for Mommy to come, and she didn't come. So I finally asked him, "Where's Mommy?" Oh, she hurt my masterpiece, so I sent her to a hospital. For crying out loud, this is a critical time. The last of it just flew by me. I didn't hear the rest. All that mattered was that first part. I sent her to a hospital. A hospital ... He meant then that he'd sent her away. She wasn't coming back. I wasn't going to see her again. Why wasn't I angry at her for scalding me? Because that was not her fault. Nothing that had happened to Mom was her fault. Everything was his fault. She was innocent. And I told him so. My left side. I have a scar across it now. My fire quirk. Everything in me that I got from him. I reject it all. I will never be like him. I will never use my fire side. I will be a hero, the greatest hero in the world, using only my right side, my ice side, my mom's side. I reject him completely. I am one of the students of UA to be admitted on recommendations. That means that I don't have to take the same exam as general applications. It does not mean I don't have to take any test at all. Rather, I have to take an even harder exam against the other recommended students. At the main testing site, there's about 20 other students standing around, all of them the best of the best. There's a huge guy with a buzz cut, a small girl about my age with a lizard-like face and long green hair, a boy with a Glasgow grin, and a tall girl with jet black hair, wearing what looks like a red bikini. A smattering of others, but those are the ones that stand out to me. The last girl in particular, because everyone else, in the cold February air, is wearing full tracksuits to keep warm. She doesn't even appear cold. She has her nose in a book. The test is hosted by the MC voice hero present mic. The written portion is over. Next up is the practical part. The last is the interview. You'll be in groups of 6 for the practical. Could the numbers we just called proceed to the test site? He calls my number, and I go inside accompanied by the tall guy in Glasgow grin. After about half an hour, my number is called. I go in alongside the girl with the jet black hair. Mike holds his hands out over a decorated site. Your test is a 3-kilometer foot race, but this isn't a race that can be finished just by running. Make use of your quirks to reach the goal. I'm pretty quick to take the lead with Mom's ice powers. Nobody else even seems close. Just a few more seconds, and I'll be first. I'll have made it into UA, using only my right side. And then tall guy overtakes me. And number 41 is first by a hair, says Mike's loud, obnoxious voice, drowning out everything else. I'm not in first. And tall guy is yelling loud and clear. Yeah, I won. But who can say about next time? You're awesome, man. He's in my face. He's standing in my way. And he's saying exactly all the wrong things. You must be 𝗵𝗲's son or something, right? Too cool. 𝗵𝗲's son. Shove it. This is a test. Passing's all that matters. We're not competing or anything. Move out of my way. He takes the hint and gets out of the way. I head over to the observation room. This is a stiff competition. Only 4 recommend students are allowed into UA. Even if I make it, I could be stuck with that obnoxious loudmouth for a classmate. He quickly leaves my mind as I find myself watching the rest of the applicants. Both of us, all of them, are trounced by her. The girl with the black ponytail and the light clothes. Her power lets her make things, apparently, out of her body. Her name is Momoge Yarazu. Up against the likes of her. Coming in second place doesn't leave me much room to get admitted. That's what I though, anyway, until the results came in the mail. Turns out, I'm in second, somewhat inexplicably, right after Yarazu. 𝗵𝗲 wished me a good day for my first day. I was in the same class and seated next to the black-haired girl with the creation quirk. Our teacher stopped us from attending the orientation demonstration, telling us to put on our uniforms and head to the sports field. A quirk apprehension test. One of the other students was asking, "What about the ceremony and the guidance counseling?" "If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for that," said Mr. Aizawa, our teacher. "You all understand the school's reputation for freedom on campus. That freedom goes for us teachers too. The softball pitch, the standing long jump, the 50-meter dash, endurance running, grip strength, sustained sideways jumps, upper body exercise, seated to touch. These are all activities you know from middle school, naturally. Physical tests where you were barred from using your quirks. The country still hasn't gotten around to standardizing those sorts of records or keeping track of average performance levels. Well, that's negligence on the part of 𝗵𝗃𝗲, he said, turning to a tall, athletic boy with spiky blonde hair. "How far could you pitch a softball in middle school?" 6-7 meters, the boy, 𝗵𝗃𝗲, answered. "Try using your quirk this time around. As long as you don't exit the circle, anything is fine. Don't hold back." "Got it," he said, winding up to pitch, then screaming, "Die." as the ball blasted out of his hand with a giant explosion, flying far into the distance. "Before anything else, one must know what they're capable of," said Sensei, holding up a measuring calculator for all of us to see. 705. 2 meters. This is a rational metric that will form the basis of your hero foundation. "Awesome," cheered a girl in the crowd. "That looks so fun." The teacher friend at her. "It looks like fun, you say. So you were planning to spend your 3 years here having a good old time. What happened to becoming heroes? All right, then. In that case, the student who ranks last in total points will be judged hopeless and instantly expelled. Our freedom means we dispense with students as we please." He gave a strange grin. "Welcome to the hero department," another girl protested. "This is our first day." "Even if it wasn't, that's just unfair. Natural disasters, massive accidents, ego-mad villains ... all kinds of calamities can happen when we least expect them. The world is full of unfairness. It's our jobs as heroes to reverse it all and restore reason. If you were counting on a friendly chat at the local McDonald's after school, that's too bad. From now on, for the next 3 years, all you can expect from life at UA is one hardship after the next. This is plus ultra. I expect you to overcome these trials and climb to the top." Now then, that was the demonstration. Time to step up to the plate. The events mostly passed by, for me, without incident. Mastering quirk-based tests is easy for me. My power was designed to be formidable. The only incident of note was during the ball toss. A boy with curly green hair got into trouble with the teacher, though it was hard to see for what. He finally succeeded in throwing the ball even further than 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗁, though it seemed to result in his finger breaking, and for some reason angered 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗁, who ran out of line to yell at him only to be restrained by the teacher. It seemed like 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗁 and Midoriya knew each other ... and as though they had some sort of problem with one another. In the end, I'd come in second place, after the girl named 𝐒𝐻𝑢𝐳 from the entrance exam. The teacher revealed that nobody was to be thrown out after all. All in all, a distinctly strange first day. Before noon at UA, the hero course has normal lessons for the required subjects. At noon, everyone gathers in the mess hall for lunch. For the afternoon portion, we begin our daily foundational hero studies. I am here, coming through the door. Normally, our first hero course class was to be taught by none other than 𝐼𝐺 himself. He was there, in all his larger-than-life glory, striding through the door of Class 1A, and I could hear everyone else murmuring in excitement. Foundational Hero Studies. For this class, we'll be building up your hero foundation through various trials. Plus, you'll get tons of extra credit for it, he said, striding before us with all the same bravado he usually displays on TV. Let's jump right in with this combat training, he announced as he held up a card labeled Combat. And to go with your first battle, we've prepared the gear we had you send in requests for to match your quirks. Get changed, and we'll be ready to go. Everyone, gather at ground beta. Remember, the garb you bring into the battlefield is vitally important, boys and girls. Don't forget, from here on out you're all officially heroes. To explain, before entering UA, one is asked to submit a report on one's quirk and body specs. An affiliated company attached to the school takes the information and makes top-notch costumes. It's a smooth system. Specific requests are accepted, so the result is state-of-the-art costume design. I crafted mine with one goal in mind. First, the color must be entirely white, resistant to extremes in cold. A covering of ice to completely conceal my left-hand side, with a glass focus over the eye to keep my vision unobscured. As it is, when I'm in costume, on the battlefield, no one can see my damn left side. Everyone gathered together at ground beta, a mock city on the school grounds. I had a moment to take in the others' costumes. 𝐒𝐻𝑢𝐳's was a low-cut leotard, belt and boots. I imagined she must get cold. 𝐼𝐺's was a full-covered bodysuit, like a tank. 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗁's was mostly red and black, including half-face mask, bomb-like gauntlets, boots and a tank top cut low to show his arms and shoulders. The last to join us was Midoriya, the boy with the finger-breaking quirk. At first I didn't quite recognize him, because he wore a strange hooded green bodysuit with a cap that appeared to have rabbit ears. It really didn't look particularly impressive. It barely looked as if it had been made by the professional company. He certainly was a strange guy. Let's see what you're made of, you zygotes, said 𝐼𝐺, standing in front of us like a general preparing troops. It's time for the battle trial. 𝐒𝐻𝑢𝐳 raised a hand. Sir, regarding the performance we'll be using, is it the mock city from the entrance exam? You'll see. In fact, take 2 steps and you'll be there. This will be an indoor battle trial. Villain cleanup is usually seen out in the open, but statistically, the better part of it is an indoor job. Most acts of villainy are committed indoors. Imprisonment, house arrest, the black market. In this hero-saturated society. For this test, you'll separate into villain and hero groups for a 2-on-2 team battle. What about the foundational training? Asked a girl with frog powers. This is foundational training, announced 𝐼𝐺. Only this time, there won't be any robots it'd be okay to just destroy. 𝐒𝐻𝑢𝐳 raised her hand. So, how do we determine who wins and loses? Bakugo growled. Is it okay if we just blow them away? The gravity girl, 𝗂𝗧𝗏, chimed in with, is there a threat of expulsion, like with Mr. Aizawa? Ada piled on. If we're separating into different groups, what would be the best way to do so? HN. I can't hear you if you all speak at once, said All Might, looking a little overwhelmed. For this training, we'll have some villains guard a nuclear weapon they intend on deploying. The heroes must stop them and their nefarious scheme before it's too late. If the heroes capture the villains, or reach the nuclear core before the time runs out, they win. If the villains manage to keep the core the whole time, or capture the heroes, they win. Your teammates and opponents will be chosen by lottery. Is that really how we'll do it? Asked Ida. Midoriya piped up. Well, pros are often forced to name impromptu team-ups with other heroes they might not know very well, so this is probably testing that. I see, said Ida, as if he felt he'd made a mistake. Always looking to the future. I apologize. Let's start, said All Might, finally getting another word in edgewise. We drew our lots. I ended up on Team B with Mizo Shoji, a boy with duplicator limb powers. The first teams to do combat would be Midoriya's and Bakugo's, with the former on the hero's side, the latter on the villains. All Might was saying to them, before they went inside, this scenario has the villains inside the building first. Then, after 5 minutes, the heroes will be let in as well. Everyone else will be able to watch what unfolds through the surveillance cameras. This will allow young Ada and Bakugo to get inside the heads of villain kind. This is a practical training exercise, so go all out without fear of injury. Though naturally, we'll cut it short if things get out of hand. With that, he dismissed them, and the rest of us went to a monitor room to observe their battle. Now watch and hatch strategies of your own, All Might told us as we gathered together to survey the room. The trial started with Midoriya and 𝗂𝗧𝗏 successfully sneaking into a lower floor. As we watched, Bakugo snuck up on them and jumped them with a well-timed explosion, which Midoriya barely dodged. That Bakugo's a cheater, shouted a boy with spiky red hair. An ambush is so unmanly. Not necessarily, I thought. You can't always let pride get in the way of accomplishing your goals. Ambushes are good strategy. All Might chimed in, seemingly to agree with me. They are in the heat of battle. After all, Midori actually dodged pretty well, said Mina Ashido, a girl with pink hair, skin, and horns. As we watched, Bakugo moved in to attack Midoriya again. But Midoriya seemed ready, as if anticipating the exact move Bakugo was going to make. He seized his arm and judo tossed him over his head, slamming him into the floor, with force that clearly did not involve that blasting, finger-breaking quirk of his. It was impossible to tell what they were saying to each other, but the two were yelling at one another as if in the heat of a grand passion. What's he saying? Asked the spiky-haired boy. There's no sound through the surveillance footage. Teammates, All Might explained, can communicate through wireless transceivers, and they all have a rough sketch of the building. And then there's this capture tape. The second someone's wrapped this around their opponent, that's the sign that they're captured. The time limit is 15 minutes, said Ashido, looking worried, and the heroes don't know exactly where the core is being held, right? Yes, the hero side is at a pretty heavy disadvantage in this scenario, she concluded. As she spoke, I watched the monitors. Midoriya and Bakugo were still arguing, possibly yelling at each other. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 was hesitating behind Midoriya, and Bakugo looked ready to destroy something. Things for the hero team were not looking especially good right now, in the face of that overwhelming tenacity. Didn't Mr. Aizawa teach you kids our motto? All Might asked Ashido. Say it with me now. Plus, ultra. Everyone was pumping their fists into the air, happy to be cheering, when Aoyama, a Frenchman with a naval laser, drew our attention to Bakugo once more. He blasted himself towards Midoriya, this time attempting to kick instead of fist blast him. 𝗂𝗧𝗏 ran off, and in the blink of an eye, Midoriya was wrapping the capture tape around Bakugo's ankle. He must have been expecting that move, I thought, recalling that it had seemed during the quirk test the previous day as though they knew each other. That Midoriya called Bakugo Kaken, and that Bakugo called him Deku ... and oh, not just knew each other. They must have been some kind of childhood friends, to be on such familiar footing. So we weren't just watching a matchup of two classmates right now. This was a fight these two had probably been thinking about their whole lives. As if knowing what Bakugo would do by heart, Midoriya dodged his next move, a blast to the wall that would perhaps have knocked him out, and dodged for cover. Look at him go, said another observer. He hasn't used his quirk once, but he's still going toe-to-toe with the kid who got first place in the entrance exam. He's mostly been dodging and capturing, though. He won't be able to keep that up forever. Sure enough, Midoriya suddenly fled the room, leaving Bakugo to chase after him, snaring and shrieking as if going out of his mind. Damn, that kid's pissed. It's scary, said the electric-powered boy, Denki Kaminari. Both evaded each other, 𝗵𝗃𝗄 growing more and more reckless and angry, Midoriya looking very much as if he were coming up with a plan. Upstairs, Uraraka had found Ida, but that did her no good, as he was well prepared for her arrival and had left her no weapons. As she seemed to tell Midoriya of this on their headphones, 𝗵𝗃𝗄 had finally found him, and raised a bomb gauntlet as if loading and cocking a gun. 𝗵𝗃𝗄, stop this, All Might shouted, you'll kill him. This seemed accurate, as a moment later 𝗵𝗃𝗄 let off a blast from the bomb so large it rocked the foundation of the building. This is supposed to be training, cried out the spiky-haired boy. Midoriya called All Might. We watched the smoke clear. Midoriya was lying on the ground, his clothes singed, but still alive. Sir, please put a stop to this, Spiky Hair was saying to All Might. That 𝗵𝗃𝗄 kid's gone crazy. At this rate, he'll kill him. No, said All Might, though not as if shutting Spiky Hair down, more as if considering. Then he said, into the microphone, 𝗵𝗃𝗄, if you shoot another blast like that, I'll end this mask and you will lose. Launching an attack with such an explosive damage radius, while indoors, defeats the purpose of protecting your stronghold. It doesn't matter if you're a hero or a villain, that was just foolish. Once more and you'll earn massive demerits. It was clear that 𝗵𝗃𝗄 heard him, because he threw his hands behind his head in exasperation, and then launched himself directly at Midoriya, who, it seemed, had been speaking the whole time to Uraraka over his mic. He wasn't able to move in time, and held up his hand as if to punch, but 𝗵𝗃𝗄, instead of blasting him head-on, blasted himself behind Midoriya, and hit him from behind. He deliberately misled his opponent, and used his explosion quirk to redirect his trajectory midair to his advantage. I murmured quietly. You wouldn't think him the clever type looking at him, but those were some subtle motor skills. Landing a telling blow while resisting inertia at the same time means he must be able to adjust his explosion power finely, said Yaoyorozu, as if continuing my thoughts. Can't say I like him, but the kid's got talent, mused Kaminari. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 was continuing to beat him Midoriya, hitting him with a punch and slamming him into the ground. This is just torture, said Spiky Hair. It's clear he's already captured him. That's not the behavior of a hero, agreed Tokoyami, a boy with a bird head. That seems rather harsh, though it's clear that 𝗵𝗃𝗄 is more intent on hurting Midoriya than winning the exercise at this point. There's something going on between those two. In the face of his opponent, Midoriya was running away, like a frightened rabbit. As he reached the wall and turned back to 𝗵𝗃𝗄, they started yelling at each other once more, Midoriya with tears in his eyes. And now, they were cheering at each other, as though prepared to unleash the full force of both abilities on one another. Sir, that's enough already, Spiky Hair was pleading, almost begging All Might. Sir, attention, both teams, All Might was saying, but then, something stopped him. In hindsight, it must have been something Midoriya said through his mic, because instead of aiming his body-breaking power at 𝗵𝗃𝗄, he'd aimed it at the ceiling. The blast from Midoriya shot up through the entire building, turning the ground in the room Ida and Uraraka shared into debris. Debris that Uraraka could use as a weapon against Ida, which she promptly did, jumping through the debris to grab the dummy weapon, securing the win for the hero team, announced All Might, as Midoriya collapsed under the crushing breakage of his own right arm, and 𝗵𝗃𝗄 stared at him as though he'd broken his heart. I don't think I'll ever forget those two ... but at the time, I don't think I had any idea just what an impact they would make on my life. The losing team is fairly uninjured, but the winning team has collapsed, mused Kaminari. In other words, they lost the scuffle, but won the war, concluded Tokoyami. A little while later, 𝗵𝗃𝗄, Uraraka and Ida were gathered in the monitor room for a review of their performances. I'd say the best in this match ... was young Ida, said All Might. But weren't the winners Ochako and Midoriya? Asked Tsuyu, the frog girl, looking perplexed. I wonder why I would say that, said All Might, rather cheekily. Who knows why? I can tell you why, said Yaoyorozu almost on cue. It's because Ida was the one who adapted the most to the situation. Having watched the fight, 𝗵𝗃𝗄's behavior was clearly driven by some personal grudge, and thus totally arbitrary. Furthermore, as you said, Sensei, a large-range attack in an indoor arena is just foolish. The same reasoning goes for Midoriya. Uraraka lost focus halfway through, and her final attack was too reckless. If she'd treated the dummy weapon as if it were real, she'd never have launched such a large-scale attack. Ida was fully prepared for his opponent's arrival. He had a counter-strategy, and never lost sight of his mission to protect the dummy weapon. Technically the hero team won, yes, but they took advantage of the fact that this was training, and didn't respect the spirit of the trial. She basically nailed it, I thought. She noticed more than I did. Even All Might looked impressed. Well, young Ida might have been a bit too stiff, but correct. We should always start with the basics and devote ourselves wholeheartedly to learning, said Yaoyorozu, sounding and looking almost more like the general than All Might himself had done. That's the only way to become top pros. Impressive, I thought to myself. With that, All Might called out the next match. My team, against 𝗵𝗲 𝗔𝗂𝐻 and Toru Hagakure, a boy with a tail and a girl with invisibility powers. We would be the heroes, the others would be the villains. Outside the building, a different one inside ground beta, Shoji started producing tentacles to overhear the other team. One of them's on the north side of the 4th floor, the other's somewhere on the same floor, barefoot. The invisible one must be planning to ambush us for capture. For your own safety, I told him, step outside. Our opponents intend to fight a defensive battle, but we've already won. With one gesture, I could effortlessly freeze the entire building and stick our opponent's feet to the ground. A few minutes later, I had reached the top floor and was facing Ojiro. He looked terrified, shaking with only his hands raised in defense. You can try and fight me if you like, I told him, but do be aware that peeling the skin off the sole of your foot doesn't help your combat abilities much. Going past him, I made it to the dummy weapon and secured the win with a single touch. Apologies, I said to Ojiro, hearing All Might call out the win and using my left hand to melt the ice. The gap between us is just too big. All Might gave us our reviews, and mostly just praised me. Ieyasu had nothing to say about our performance in particular. I noticed behind her that Bakugo was looking away, as if still upset from before. A few matches later, we all stood outside facing our teacher. Good work, everyone. Apart from young Midoriya, there were no big injuries. Nevertheless, no holds were barred. For your first exercise, you all did wonderfully. Such an honest lesson right after Mr. Aizawa's is kinda anticlimactic if you ask me, said Asui. We're free to hold straightforward classes if we wish, said All Might brightly. Change and return to the classroom. He then rushed away in a flash. Thus concluded our first day of combat training. All in all, what I could surmise from the day's work was that my classmates were really something else. A few days later, we would come to face the threat All Might had mentioned. The terror of true evil. The news that All Might had entered U.S. faculty threw the whole country into an uproar, and the mass media were pressing at the gates for days on end for a scoop. It made it really annoying to try and get in the front doors for class. The day after our combat training, we were back in our homeroom class with Mr. Aizawa. Hope you're rested from yesterday's battle trial. I took the liberty of looking at your marks and evaluation, he said. Bakugo, stop acting like a child. You're wasting your talent. Got it, said Bakugo. I'd half expected him to start yelling again, but around Sensei he was pretty calm. And Midoriya, are you always planning on destroying your arm? If you keep going, I can't adjust my quirk, so I have no choice. You won't get terribly far. I've said it before. Don't make me say it a third time. Once you've cleared that hurdle, you'll be much more flexible. So show a little urgency. Yes, sir, said Midoriya. And with that, Mr. Aizawa turned his attention to new matters. Now, let's get on with the homeroom notices. I'm sorry to spring this on you all, but what now? Another pop test. We need to pick a class president. Finally, something school-like. It felt like everyone was thinking that together now. All at once, everyone seemed to be volunteering for the job, each student claiming their own right to the position over the others. Thinking it over, though, it wasn't something I was interested in. I've never been particularly interested in leading others. And in my opinion, there was someone else way more suited for the job than me, and more suited than anyone else in class, really. The choice seemed obvious. She was raising her hand too, in the seat next to mine. Ieyasu, my fellow recommendation student, though she wasn't making as loud of a fuss as some of the others. If this was just a normal school, then being class rep would just be a lot of boring paperwork. But here, in the hero course, it's more like guiding the group, a position that will build up your hero foundation all the faster. Be quiet, everyone, said Ida. This is a task laden with responsibility, where you must carry and pull everyone else's weight. It's a holy office that requires the esteem and trust of everyone else in class. The only truly worthy leader will emerge from a democratic choice, reflecting the will of the people, which is why this must be settled by a vote. It's still too early to have developed any trust in each other, said Asui. And everyone will just vote for themselves, added Kirishima. And that's precisely why the person who does manage to earn multiple votes will be the truly appropriate person for the job. No, said Ida. Is that all right, Sensei? He said, turning to Mr. Aizawa. As long as you all decide by the deadline. Anything's fine, said Mr. Aizawa, going to sleep in his old sleeping bag. I cast my vote for Ieyasu and waited patiently to see the outcome. When the votes were tallied, Ida, Uraraka, Hagakure, and myself had none. 14 of our classmates had 1 apiece. Ieyasu had 2. And the winner, with 3 votes, was... You gotta be kidding me. Who voted for Deku? Demanded Bakugo. Deku being his name for Midoriya. Well, guess we know it wasn't you, snarked Zero. Ida was looking really upset. 0 votes. I see how it is. Of course, since I insisted on the sacredness of the role. You voted for somebody else, said Ieyasu, even though you wanted the job so badly. What are you doing, Ida? Asked Sato. So then, said Mr. Aizawa, coming out of his name, it's President Midoriya and Vice President Ieyasu. The two stood before us, making quite a striking contrast. Ieyasu was almost half a foot taller than Midoriya, poised and calm, while he was sweaty, nervous, and shaking, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. Well, said Kirishima, Midoriya was real fired up during our combat training. And Ieyasu was real cool during the training analysis, added Kaminari. Maybe this won't be so bad. I wasn't particularly sure. Midoriya was passionate, certainly ... but would passion really be enough to lead us? While we were eating in the cafeteria that day, the alarm system went off, indicating we needed to evacuate. The entire room charged the door, nearly crushing us in the hallway, until a loud voice from the emergency exit door caught all of our attention. Ida was standing on the emergency exit sign, his glasses fallen off and a note of firm command in his tone. Everybody, calm down. It's okay. It's just the press. There's nothing to panic about. It's okay. You're at UA. Let's conduct ourselves in the manner of those enrolled at the highest academia. This information soothed the crowd. Everyone dispersed, the police arrived, the reporters withdrew, and we all returned to Class 1A. All right, President, said Ieyasu to Midoriya. Start us off. We're supposed to decide who our other class officers will be, but first, I need to say something, he said, still shaking a bit, like uncertain of his own words. I've thought a lot about this, and I think that Tenya Ida should be our class rep. He was able to get the whole crowd to calm down, and I think that makes him the right choice for the job. Yeah, he's got a point, said Kirishima, grinning and looking real satisfied. Ida made a great showing back there at the lunchroom. I wouldn't have minded Midoriya either, of course, he added, apologetically. He looked like the guy on the emergency exit sign, said Kaminari, and the two of them both grinned. Whatever, just get on with it already, growled Mr. Aizawa from inside his sleeping bag. Time is wasting. If it's the wish of the class rep, said Ida, then I can't refuse. Do us proud, emergency exit, cheered Kirishima. Emergency exit Ida. Don't let us down, said Kaminari. With that, Ida was placed as class rep, although Ieyasu still looked exceptionally displeased. 12:50 p.m. the next day. With the class rep decided, Mr. Aizawa was ready to begin our hero studies. For the foundational heroic skills we'll study today, it was decided you'll be supervised by a 3-man team consisting of me, All Might, and one other teacher. Mr. Aizawa raised up a small card labeled Rescue. Rescue training. To be the hero everyone needs, whether for a flood or any other disaster. Rescue training sounds right up my alley, said Kaminari. Totally, gushed Ishido, fist pumping. This is what a hero's whole job is, said Kirishima, getting all pumped. I'm chomping at the bit. If it's a flood, then that environment's my speciality, Kiro, added Asui. Don't get ahead of yourselves, said Mr. Aizawa, totally killing the mood. As I was saying, this time it's entirely up to each of you whether or not you wear your costume. Some of your costumes probably aren't adapted to the task at hand. After all, the training area is fairly far away, so we'll get there by bus. That's all. Go get prepared. Rescue training. That was certainly an aspect of heroism that my damn old man had never really bothered telling me about. Everyone got changed and headed out to the bus with Ida giving us orders as our new rep. In order to get everyone seated smoothly on the bus, file into 2 lines according to your numbers, he yelled, blowing a whistle and swaying his hand back and forth. Unfortunately for Ida, the bus's open layout ruined by boarding strategy. He moaned, sitting in the open part of the bus. I'd sat down in the very back of the bus, and within a few minutes, I'd fallen asleep, not really looking to interact with anyone. I was awoken by the bus stopping at the gates of a big circular building with reflective panels all over. Inside, we found a huge themed set of mock areas, like a theme park attraction. A shipwreck, a landslide, a fire, etc., said a mic-fied voice I remembered hearing dozens of times on TV. This is a practical training area I created to simulate all kinds of accidents and disasters, and its name is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, said the tall pro hero in a spacesuit standing in front of us, who we all knew as the Space Hero 13, said Midoriya. The chivalrous pro who does phenomenal work helping with disaster relief. Wow, I've always liked 13, cheered Uraraka. Mr. Aizawa mumbled something to 13, as we all gathered around and got ready for the day ahead. Okay, well, shall we? He said, apparently satisfied with 13's reply. Before we begin, said 13, holding up fingers as they spoke, just one thing, or 2 ... or 3 ... or 4. We get it. I'm certain you're all already quite aware, but my quirk is called Black Hole. No matter what material gets sucked into its vortex, it will turn to dust. That's a quirk that's perfect for removing wreckage and saving people injured by disasters, cheered Midoriya. Yes, said 13, and a sinister note suddenly came into their voice. However, it is a power that could also easily be used to kill people, and in that way, it's no different from the quirks of everyone here. Naturally, in this society of superhumans, quirks are strictly regulated, and the requirements for their lawful use enforced. We can tell at a glance that that is the makeup of this world. That being said, please don't forget that each of you possesses a quirk that can go awry. One wrong step is all it takes to kill someone else by accident. During Mr. Aizawa's strength test, you learned your power's true potential, and during All Might's battle training, I think you took away a true sense of the danger of brandishing those powers against each other. This lesson will serve as a fresh start. Let's get to studying about how to wield our quirks for the sake of human life. Your quirks do not exist to hurt others. Please leave this exercise having fully understood that your quirks exist to help people. That is all. You have my gratitude for listening so intently and patiently. 13 concluded with a bow. All right. First things first, said Mr. Aizawa, but before he could finish what he was saying, something seemed to catch his eye. Far away, by the fountain near USJ's play, some kind of black, swirling mist had appeared out of nowhere, growing larger and larger. Suddenly, a hand came through the mist, as if it were a portal, and a face appeared within ... or not a face. A guy with scraggly hair and a severed hand, covering most of his face and exposing a single, scarlet, bloodshot eye. Huddle together and don't move, said Mr. Aizawa. 13. Protect the students. What is that? Said Kirishima, as he looked down as a cascade of strangers swept in through the mist. Is this like that training pattern at the entrance exam? Don't move, said Mr. Aizawa. His tone was dead serious. These are villains. There they were, right in the midst of our rescue training. The villains who pros did battle with. The giant Miss guy who'd brought them inside was saying Eraserhead and number 13. According to the teacher's curriculum we proceed yesterday, All Might was supposed to be here, and yet, I knew it. That was you yesterday, said Mr. Aizawa. Where is he? We went through all this trouble, and rustled up so many of us to bring along ... You can't tell me All Might, the symbol of peace, isn't here. The hand guy was hissing. I wonder if he'll show up, if we kill some of these here kids. What we faced that day was an evil we could never have suspected. Villains? No way. What kind of numbskull could think honest to goodness villains would be able to just waltz into the hero home base? Sensei, said Yaoyorozu, what about the intruder alarm sensors? Of course we have some set up, said 13, but is this the only campus they've infiltrated? Or are they attacking all the others too? I murmured. At any rate, if the sensors aren't responding, that just means they must have one amongst their number who has a quirk that can do that. An isolated space away from the school building. At a time when there's a class scheduled ... It may seem out of the question, but they must have some solid objective. This isn't an ambush without some carefully planned scheme behind it. Number 13, said Mr. Aizawa, do the evacuation procedure and try calling the school. These villains know how to get around the sensors. There's a chance there's an electrowave type who'll try interfering. Kaminari, you too. Try contacting UA with your quirk. Sensei, cried Midoriya, are you gonna fight them alone? Even if you surprise all of their quirks, there's so many of them. The battle style of Eraserhead is to capture villains after erasing their quirks, meaning the main battle starts now. Mr. Aizawa turned back to him, his goggles now on. A hero always has more than one trick up their sleeves. 13, I'm counting on you. With that, he kept down the dais and went straight to the villains. Within seconds, he'd taken out at least 5, like a real, pro. Meanwhile, 13 was evacuating our class, as we followed them to the front door. Just as we were headed to evacuate though ... The black mist guy sprung up in front of us, like a barrier to the doorway. I'm afraid I can't allow that, he hissed in a deep, dark, scary voice. Greetings, we are the League of Villains. I apologize for the presumption, but we took it upon ourselves to enter UA, this school of heroes, in order to engage with All Might, the symbol of peace. We were hoping to get the opportunity to extinguish him, you see. Wasn't All Might meant to be in attendance right now? Has something been altered? Well, setting that aside, this is my role, he said, and suddenly the black mist was moving, surrounding us all. Kirishima and Bakugo went flying straight at the mist guy to punch him. In the process, they actually landed a hit on him. Bet you didn't think we'd be able to do you in before you go the chance, said Kirishima. That was close, murmured the mist guy. To be expected. To you may be mere students, you are also the hero world's golden eggs. It's no use, just run, shouted 13. Run, you too. The mist surrounded us again. And the voice echoed, you will be scattered and tortured to death. The noise resounded all around us. I fell down into the landslide zone, and found myself surrounded by a large stash of villains without a sign of any other classmate. The villains were coming towards me, prepared to attack. With a single attack of ice, I'd succeeded in freezing them all in place. Aren't you embarrassed to lose to a child? I asked. For God's sake, you're adults. They dumped me in the landslide zone, an open disaster prep arena not too far from the central plaza. I surveyed the lot of frozen villains in front of me, all of them gawking in shock at how easily I'd iced them. Scatter us and kill us, huh? I asked. Sorry to say it, but to me it looks like you're just a load of mooks who don't know their quirks from their asses. The one closest to me had started struggling and swearing. That bastard. The second I can move again. Is he really just a kid? Oh, I paid very little mind to his nonsense. He wasn't getting out of there without my help. I thought back to what the face-handed villain had said before. Even though we went through the trouble of rustling up so many playmates at first blush, I thought they could overwhelm even elites with sheer numbers, and they thought they could just pop open the lid and use us as pawns. What a motley of goons. From the looks of them, the number of actual threats here caps at 4 people, maybe 5. That'd be my estimation. Kill the symbol of peace. What made them think they could pull that off? I could see the villain near me starting to freeze, and made a decision. At this rate, you will gradually succumb to death by necrosis. But since I'm aiming to be a hero, I want to avoid killing as much as I can. So, the thing to do now would be, what's the basis of your plan to kill All Might? I asked the villain, holding my hand to his face so that he would understand I meant business. When I arrived at the central plaza, All Might was being held upside down by the creature with the exposed brain known as 𝗵𝗲. I learned from the others later on that he'd had a feeling of foreboding about us, and started down to the USJ on his own. Ada had been able to escape and was headed off to get the teachers, and had explained the situation to All Might on the way. Thus, All Might had arrived in time to save many lives, and had taken on 𝗵𝗲 directly. 𝗵𝗲, the bioengineered anti-symbol of peace. That is what Shigaraki's minions had called him. A giant thoughtless creature, less a man than a monster with multiple unstoppable powers. A highly effective punching bag that hit back. A combination of 𝗵𝗲's strength and the Mist Man's warp gates had secured in pinning even All Might down, hoping to squeeze the gate shut to cut him in half. And when I got there, he wasn't alone. Moments before I arrived, Midoriya had run directly into the fray to try and stop the Mist villain, saved only from being swallowed himself by the timely intervention of Bakugo slamming the creature into the ground. Not to be outdone, I controlled my ice enough to freeze the 𝗵𝗲 in place, stopping the ice before it could reach All Might, and All Might was able to get free. I heard about your plan. Each of your roles in the scheme to kill All Might, I said, waiting patiently as Midoriya, Bakugo, and now Kirishima joined me. No funny business out of you, barked Bakugo at the Mist Man, you shadow-ass mobbling. The symbol of peace won't go down as easy as you clowns, I told the villains. From nearby, I heard Midoriya cry out 𝗂𝐿. Everyone, with near tears in his eyes, all of us, the 4 of us students and All Might, turned to face down with Tamura Shigaraki. He was looking at Bakugo. You pinned down our revolving door. Well now, this is quite the pinch. He didn't sound too worried, and that made me nervous. Just as I thought, said Bakugo, grinning. This prick was never all that sharp. If your body was just mist and physical attacks couldn't hurt it, you'd never have said that was close. It was easy to guess that's why you're wearing that neck armor. Don't move. The second you so much as twitch, I'll loud you with a nice little explosion, right here and now. I always thought he was smarter than he looks. Not a very heroic line there. Buddy, said Kirishima as Bakugo loomed over the mist gate with a grin. Tamura Shigaraki, still eerily calm, said we've been cornered, and what's more, you're all nearly unscathed. I have to hand it to kids these days. At this rate, the League of Villains will be a laughing stock. 𝗵𝗲, go ahead and finish Explosion Boy over there. Gotta get our warp gate back. 𝗵𝗲, I've pinned him, I thought, only to turn and see the creature pulling itself through the warp gate, losing an arm and a leg. Wait, how is he moving? Cried Midoriya. Didn't half of his body snap? Stand back, all of you, said All Might. Then, to Shigaraki, I thought his power was shock absorption. I never said that was his only quirk, said Shigaraki. The broken limbs regenerated in seconds from where they'd snapped. As you can see, he's also got super regeneration. 𝗵𝗲 is a human sandbank artificially crafted to the height of physical fitness to withstand your 100%. That's what they'd hinted, but I hadn't believed it until now. And now this creature had moved, so fast that the eye could barely see it, towards Bakugo. A blast of force knocked us all backwards, and I could hear Midoriya crying out 𝗂𝐿, and felt my heart skip a beat in fear. Was Bakugo, 𝗂𝐿, from Midoriya? And following his gaze I realized that Bakugo was sitting with us, where we'd all fallen, blasted back by the force of the 𝗵𝗲's punch. Why you dodged him? Asked Midoriya. Wow, no, you idiot, said Bakugo. And it dawned on me what had happened, as we all turned to see All Might, standing in between where the 𝗵𝗲 would have destroyed Bakugo, had he been standing there. Do you know no mercy? All Might asked Shigaraki. We had no choice, said Shigaraki. We had to save our ally, didn't we? And not long ago, one of your kids over there the plain-looking one, he said, indicating Midoriya. He tired to beat me up with all his strength. And for who do you think he mustered such touching acts of violence? Hero. Listen here, All Might, that makes me angry. We're all categorized as either heroes or villains. But at the end of the day, violence is violence. And who gets to decide right and wrong? Society does. The symbol of peace. Give me a break. You're nothing more than a bludgeon of oppression yourself. Violence only breeds more violence. And once we kill you, that'll be made known to the world. Idiotic, I thought. Criminals like to talk a big game, but this was just nonsense. You're mad, said All Might. Criminals like you always try to make your actions sound noble, but admit it, you're only doing this because you like it. Saw right through me, said Shigaraki, and though we couldn't see it, he was probably grinning. It was time to think this through. They may be cocky, but it's 3 on 5, I said, doing a head count. And Kaken exposed the shadow guy's weak point, said Midoriya. These guys are outrageous, but if we give All Might some support, we'll send him packing, no problem. Agreed Kirishima. No, said All Might, sticking his hand out. Please escape. What exactly was he playing at? If I hadn't come to support you earlier, you'd have been in real trouble. All Might, said Midoriya, sounding really concerned. You're bleeding, and shouldn't you already be out of tie? He stopped himself, leaving me wondering what he'd been about to say. Right you are, young Todoroki, said All Might, distracting me. And thank you, but it'll be okay now. All you need to do is watch a pro show you how it's done. Namu, Kirigiri, said Shigaraki. Kill him. I'll deal with the children. Let's clear the game and end this level. He was running straight at us. He's coming, said Kirishima. Brace yourselves. But before we could fight, All Might had jumped into the fray at Namu and was meeting him punch for punch with a force that again began to blast us backwards with its sheer strength. I told you before, said Shigaraki, turning back to All Might. He has shock absorption. Yeah, what about it? Replied All Might. And he kept on going, hitting that creature with so much force that we could feel it in our very bones. A hero is someone who smashes through every obstacle life puts his way. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. And neither it seemed could 𝗵𝘃𝗃, who hadn't spoken a word since All Might saved him, but was looking on in awe and perhaps concern. You may have heard these words before, but I'll show you what they really mean, said All Might. Go beyond, plus ultra. And with that, he blasted the Namu with a final blow that threw it through the glass ceiling and into the sky. What is this, a comic? Cried Kirishima. It's like he pounded the shock absorption right out of him. He must have been punching him so fast he couldn't regenerate, murmured 𝗵𝘃𝗃. So this is the top. I thought to myself. Through the smoke, we heard our sensei coughing. I really have gotten weaker. In my heyday, 5 hits would have knocked that guy out. But today it took more than 300 mighty blows. He turned to face Shigaraki. Now then, villain, let's end this. Shigaraki was looking quite furious. You cheated. You've gotten weaker. Liar ... We're totally overpowered ... How dare you lay a hand on my Namu? You cheated. You're no weaker. Did he ... Did he lie to me? He's speaking about some sort of boss. Someone gave him info on All Might. Bad info. So there's someone behind this. Shigaraki was wildly scratching at his neck, as if hoping to end some invisible rash, and speaking with increasingly manic tones. Against this, All Might still smiled and stood, undaunted. What's the matter? Where'd your bravado go? What happened to clearing the game? He asked Shigaraki. Try it if you can. Against All Might's glare, Shigaraki took a step back. That's All Might for you, I said to 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃, who was staring transfixed. Looks like we're not even players anymore. Midoriya, said Kirishima. We really ought to be drawing back now, otherwise we might end up getting used as hostages. Midoriya was staring at All Might with a look of unrestrained worry, as if he thought All Might, the symbol of peace, the strong wall protecting all of us, was in danger. As if to contradict Midoriya's face, All Might said to Shigaraki, well, what are you waiting for? Shigaraki was still manically scratching himself. If only Namu were here. If it were him, we'd be able to face him without one iota of pressure. Tamura Shigaraki, said the mist villain, calm yourself. If you look closely, you can clearly see the damage the Namu succeeded in dealing him. I followed their gaze and saw it was true. Where the Namu had been holding him, his side was still bleeding. The mist continued. It would appear the children are frozen in fear. It's true that reinforcements will appear soon. But I suggest, Shigaraki, that if you and I combine our efforts, there might still be ample chance to kill him. Yeah, said Shigaraki, ceasing his scratching. You're right, completely right. After all this trouble, how could we fail to defeat the final boss? They were talking big, but All Might was still standing tall, and the mist guy had indicated us. It was clearly time to go. Myself, 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃, and Kirishima turned around to head back towards the front doors. Let All Might handle the big guys, said Kirishima. We gotta go see about the others. I noticed, then, that only 3 of us had moved. Midoriya, I asked, turning back to look at him. He was still standing there, watching the interaction between All Might and the mist villain. Above any other consideration, we must avenge Namu, screamed Shigaraki, running straight at All Might with one hand extended, prepared to seize him. It happened in a flash, a movement so quick none of us could follow it. Midoriya seemed to disappear and reappear, legs flailing behind him utterly broken, in between Shigaraki and All Might, flying through the air towards the mist villain with a fist extended to punch at his armor. Midoriya, cried out Kirishima, as we all watched. Horrified, Midoriya moved closer and closer to the villains. Let go of All Might, he screamed, and as he reached the villain, Shigaraki's hand slipped through the mist, lethal fingers extended to grab at Midoriya's face, laughing manically, prepared to dissolve him into nothing. Bang! A bullet blasted straight through Shigaraki's hand, hitting precisely in time to stop him from killing Midoriya. So they've finally arrived, said All Might, and following his gaze, we looked to the doorway. We're regrettably late, called the principal's voice. I came back with all the people I could scrape together. The UA staff were lined up in the entryway, and leading them in was the class president, 𝗃𝗍𝗃. Later on, we learned that 13 had ordered him to escape the USJ and fetch the pro-hero staff to help save us. 12 in all, each and every one of them a seasoned veteran. In mere minutes, they were dispatching every minor villain and saving the lingering students. They came ... It's game over, we heard Shigaraki ranting. Back to the drawing board, 𝐂𝐸𝐳, he said to the mist villain, retreating into the mist as if to escape. But then, the force of 13's black hole began to draw them both inside. Still, even with that quick action, I had a feeling it was too late. For the time being, we've failed. We heard Shigaraki's voice through the mist and noise. But we'll get you next time, symbol of peace. And on that grace note, he and the mist villain disappeared. Midoriya was lying on the ground next to All Might, legs clearly broken and head bowed. Bakugo, Kirishima and I could all see that much, and noticed that Bakugo looked perhaps the most concerned. For all his bravado, he wasn't heartless. But Midoriya, what had he hoped to accomplish by jumping out like that, I wondered? Did he think he was going to be useful to the symbol of peace? From our vantage point, we couldn't hear what they were saying. But from what little we could discern, it seemed like Midoriya and All Might were having a rather private conversation. I turned away. Now wasn't the time to contemplate the mystery of Midoriya. Looking to the door, I thought about the pro's swift arrival. If they all just came here, then that must mean the villains didn't attack the entire campus, I murmured. That was a relief. Midoriya, you all right? Called Kirishima, running over to where Head and All Might were. Before he could make it to them, before the dust had even cleared away from All Might's last fight, a giant cement wall burst up into being in between Kirishima and Midoriya. We want to check all the students for injuries, said the low, gruff voice of a familiar pro. So we'll have everyone gather in front of the gate. Leave the injured to your teachers. The square-faced pro with the power to create and manipulate cement, 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝐻, had arrived. Yes, of course, Roger, said Kirishima, rejoining me and Bakugo. But we left the plaza, and before long, the USJ, 16, 17, 18 ... not counting the kid with the crippled legs, everyone's pretty much unharmed, said the leading officer on the case. Class 1 was gathered outside the USJ in police custody. Nearby me, Hagakure, the invisible girl, was speaking with Anjiro, the tail boy. Anjiro, you were really fired up out there, and you were so strong, even on your own. She was gushing. I thought everybody had been left alone, he replied. I only pulled through using hit-and-run tactics. Where were you the whole time, Hagakure? The landslide zone. I was blown away by how strong Todoroki really is. Well, whatever. I'm just happy you're okay. Good thing I didn't accidentally end up freezing her. For the time being, continued the officer, you all need to head back to the classroom. We can't just go straight into police questioning. Naturally. Sir, said Isui, how is Mr. Aizawa? His arms are riddled with commented fractures and he's suffering from facial fractures. Thankfully, out of sheer luck, he didn't receive any brain damage. It's just ... well, the bones around his eye sockets, his orbital floor, have been crushed. There's a chance it might adversely affect his eyesight. Or so I've been told. What about 13? Asked Ishido. I fear their upper arms have sustained serious lacerations. That being said, their vitals appear to be stable. The same goes for All Might ... He's not in critical condition either. He's being brought to the infirmary to be given adequate treatment by Recovery Girl. And Deku, asked Uraraka. How's Midoriya? Said Ida. I turned to listen to this. Midoriya, he seems he's fit for the infirmary too. I have business to attend to there as well. The police officer turned to his second in command. Sansa, you see to the rest. The principal said we have to focus on fortifying our security across the board. The next day, school was temporarily closed, but it didn't take long for things to get back to normal. My old man wanted to know the details of what had happened, and Big Sis Fayumi fussed and fretted over the danger I'd been in, but for the most part I avoided any newfound drama by simply not speaking with them. The whole thing had left me with a distinctive sense of foreboding. Like Shigaraki's declaration was something to be strictly attended to. All right, listen, announced Ida the first day after our return. It's time for this morning's homeroom period. Take your seats, everyone. We are in our seats, said Zero. You're the one who's not. The door opened and Mr. Aizawa came in, covered in bandages. Morning, class. Mr. Aizawa, you're already back. Everyone cried out. Sensei, you're all right, asked Ida. Can you really call that okay? Said Uraraka. Don't worry about me. After all, the battle hasn't really ended for you yet. The UA Sports Festival is approaching. "Oh yeah, this is a school." "Wait, hold up," said 𝗵𝗲. "That sounds like something villains would try to infiltrate. Will it be okay?" "On the contrary," replied Mr. Aizawa. "Since we're going ahead with the festival, it means the school is confident it has its ducks in a row when it comes to crisis control now. I hear police presence will be 5 times bigger than normal, for example. What you should be thinking about is what a huge chance the sports festival presents for you all. This isn't some event that'll be brought to a halt by the likes of villains." "Why not?" said 𝗵𝗲. "It's just a sports festival." "𝗵𝗲," said Midoriya, staring at 𝗵𝗲 incredulously. "Have you never seen the UA Sports Festival?" "Of course I have." "That's not it," Aizawa-sensei continued. "Our sports festival is one of Japan's biggest events. Long ago, the Olympics was the sports festival that whipped the nation into a froth of enthusiasm. But now the extent and population have shrunk and it's lost a lot of substance. So what has taken the place of the Olympics in Japan is the UA Sports Festival. Next to me, Yaoyorozu added, the country's top heroes are all sure to be watching us. It's because they'll be scouting for us. I'm thinking I might follow the tactic of going sidekick for a pro heroes squad after graduating." Kaminari piped up. "But there are loads of people who get stuck as sidekicks forever and miss their chance to break out as solo heroes," replied Jiru. "And you seem just that kind of dumbass, Kaminari." "Naturally," said Mr. Aizawa. "Entering a famous hero team will get you higher status and more experience. Remember, time is limited. If you get noticed by a pro, that gives you the standing for a brighter future than otherwise. This is the chance you'll only get once a year, for a total of 3. If you're aiming to be a hero, this is an event you can't overlook." With that announcement, it was time for proper classes to begin that day, and we were left contemplating our future opportunity. At the lunch bell, I got up and left class early. I always try to be first in line for the soba stand. About 10 minutes later, my classmates started lining up behind me, and I happened to be near Uraraka and Ada, and without meaning to, overheard their conversation. "That was so weird of All Might," was the phrase that caught my ear from Uraraka's mouth. "Wonder what he wanted with Deku." "I heard Midoriya jumped in when All Might was getting attacked," said Ada, speaking of the USJ. "It's probably something to do with that. Also, remember what Asui said on the bus. His power is a great deal like All Might's, so he might have taken an interest in him." "Right, what Asui had said. Your power is a lot like All Might's." And the USJ, when Midoriya had jumped into danger, breaking his legs, to save All Might from the villains ... that strange super strength, and now secret conferences between them. There's definitely something up with those two. Thinking back on what I knew about quirks, it seemed the most likely explanation was that Midoriya was, somehow, related to All Might. But if he was, why wouldn't All Might come out and say so? An illegitimate child, perhaps. They looked nothing alike, though. But perhaps ... that would explain a good deal. Either way, this probably meant that Midoriya was All Might's protege, someone that the symbol of peace himself had marked as special and worthy. "Everyone, are your preparations complete?" cried Ida. "We're set to enter very soon." Our class was gathered together in the waiting room of the stadium. The day of the festival had finally arrived. Everyone was dressed in the school gym uniform, and I had decided it was time to talk to him. "Midoriya," I said, walking up to him. "What is it, Todoroki? On an objective basis, I think I'm above you in terms of practical strength." He looked surprised, confused. Yeah, you've managed to get All Might's eyes on you, right?" I asked him. "I'm not prying into that, but I'm going to beat you." "What's with this belligerence all of a sudden?" asked Kirishima, grabbing my shoulder. I shrugged him off. "Don't spring this on him right before I'm not here to play nice and make friends," I snapped at him, "but whatever." I turned away. I'd said my piece, but then Midoriya spoke up. "I have no idea what you want from me, telling me all that," he said slowly. I turned back to face him. He was clenching his fists and looking downward. "You're definitely stronger than me. In fact, you probably have more potential than anyone in the hero course, looking at it objectively." "Come on, Midoriya," said Kirishima behind me. "Don't be so negative." "Even so," Midoriya interrupted, or rather continued. "Everyone, even kids from other departments, are aiming for the top with everything they've got." Something had changed in him now. This wasn't self-deprecation or false modesty. No ... this was something else. He looked up to meet my gaze, and there was no wavering now. "So I can't let myself lag behind. I'll be aiming for the top too." "Oh," I said, not quite sure how to respond. It seemed he'd at least be putting in an effort. "Strange." Present Mike's voice boomed out as we walked into the ring. "Let me guess, you all came to see them, right? The fresh-formed miracle stars that shrugged off a mass villain assault with wheels of steel. The Hero Department Freshman Class 1A. The venue for the UA Sports Festival was a gigantic, glittering arena, a circular stadium with seating for cheering thousands and a broadcast geared worldwide. Our fellow students joined us, class by class, until the entire freshman year stood before the podium. Now, fair play, announced the referee for our year, our teacher, the R-rated hero Midnight, once everyone had gathered. After she'd rung us in, she called, "Now, for your player representative, Katsuki Bakugo of Class 1A. Bakugo, our class representative, isn't that Ida?" I wondered, though I supposed it was perhaps in reference to his skills. He'd been the top of the regular examinees. He stepped up to the microphone on the podium and said, "Sensei, I'm gonna place first." A massive angry boo of dissent came from the freshman crowd. Everyone was annoyed with Bakugo's words and looking at our class as if he spoke for each and every one of us. In response, he said, "You'll all make fantastic stepping stones, I'm sure," and stepped off the platform. Amidst all the booing, however, I was rather reminded of Midoriya's words. Those two, I thought, as Bakugo bumped Midoriya's shoulder on the way down, are rather more alike than they think. Midnight said, "Aye, right. With that we can move directly onto our first event, onto the preliminaries as they're called. Lots of fine folk end up choking on their tears here every year. And this year's first round is," she pointed to a screen, and the words came up, "Obstacle race this. It's a race between all 11 classes. The course makes a nearly 4 kilometers ring around this stadium. We always sing about our freedom on campus. Well, this is what it's all about. You're free to do anything, so long as you remain within the course. So let's get cracking. On your marks." Everyone took their stance, headed for the gate. The buzzer rang. Start. Immediately, the gates out of the arena crushed half the students inside their walls. "Our first filter," I murmured, and a plan instantly sprang to mind. My ice extended, easily freezing the entryway and trapping the others, sticking their feet to the ground, and making an easy opening for me to break free and keep running, taking the lead. "You'll have to try harder than that, Todoroki," called a familiar voice. I turned around and saw Yaoyorozu, followed by Bakugo and Kirishima, easily evading my attack and flying over the crowd, her with a creation from her wrist, and Bakugo with his explosions, shouting, "I won't let you get away that easily." "Well, obviously some of them in my class were gonna make it past," I murmured, watching a surprisingly large amount of my fellow students breaking through the ice. "But more of you were able to dodge it than I thought." "I ain't buying your bluff, Todoroki," shouted 𝗵𝗲, my classmate with the sticky ball quirk. "Now why don't you swallow my killer move?" Grapefruit with a loud bang, he was swatted away and rolled across the ground. I skated to a stop in front of a near army of robots that towered over us students, a seemingly impenetrable barrier. "A Robo Inferno," shouted Present Mike's voice over the loudspeakers. "It's the villain bot that was worth 0 points in the entrance exam. So they use these kind of bots for trials in general?" "Huh," I murmured. "Geez, the least you could have done is throw us something tougher my way, since after all, my shitty old man is watching." All it took to fell the robots was a simple swat of ice to tip them over. "He stopped them," shouted some students from other courses. "He opened the way, we can go through." "Don't," I murmured. "I froze them in a precarious position, so they're gonna crash down." Behind me, the faulty quick moves of the others lead to the crashing, breaking sounds of robots falling apart. 1A's Todoroki has forged ahead and blocked the others in one fell swoop, called out Mike's voice. "That kid's harsh. Incredible. He's removed himself from the rest of the competition. Feels kinda unfair, actually. It is ... You see, not everyone is born with my abilities." Mike's commentary boomed out some more. "The first round's obstacle course is underway, and the goal is to run 1 lap around this special-made stadium's outer ring. The rules are simple and savage. Aside from leaving the course, this is a bona fide race where everything goes. The camera bots installed in each area can barely contain their excitement. And 1A's Bakugo has abandoned the ground and vaulted over their heads. Clever that. Everyone always assumes he'll be slow. I thought, from his attitude and appearance, that he's a fool ... That's a bad assumption, and a mistake I won't make. As expected of so who've made it past. Lots are from Class A." Came more commentary as I ran all out towards the next obstacle. "It's not that the other departments of Class B aren't any good," said Mr. Aizawa's voice. "It's just that Class A's learned not to hesitate. They've seen what the real world holds, and they've come to know what it is to be instilled with true fear. They coped and made it out in one piece, and now their experience has become a source of encouragement, drowning out their doubt and hesitation." On the other side, the second obstacle was finally in front of me. A giant rockfall. Mike's voice boomed in description as I froze the tightrope solid, gliding on top of them to the other side. "Well then, if the first barrier was a cinch, what do you think of the second? You fall and you're out. If you don't like that idea, maybe you can crawl. It's the FALLL. Still too easy. It's true that they're encouraged to take the bull by the horn in any number of ways, right, Eraserhead? What are those idiots doing just standing around?" came the musing voice of our sense in response. As I reached the end of the fall and hit the other side, Mike's commentary announced the player in the lead is keeping it comfortably. The loud and banging familiar sound of explosions came blast on the periphery of my vision. "He picked up the pace. Huh, guess he's a slow starter." 𝗵𝗃𝗂 looked angrier than usual as he came charging right at me. The players in the lead are separated from those bunched up behind, but won't say how many are pulling odd, so don't get complacent and keep going forward. And now we come to the hidden final barrier. Its true form is none other than I skittered to a halt right in front of the final obstacle course, the minefield. It's set up so that if you look carefully, you can see where the landmines are. Strain your eyes and feet. In any case, they're landmines. Not overly lethal, but they bang big and bright. I see, I thought, walking carefully. This obstacle was devised to be disadvantageous for whoever was in the lead. Bastards are in it for the entertainment value. It don't mean a damn thing to me. Indistinguishable almost from the blasts and explosions of the mines the kids behind me were stepping on at first. I didn't realize he was gaining on me. But while I was distracted, 𝗵𝗃𝗂 blasted right past me. He caught my gaze as he moved ahead. Yo, you think you might have issued your little declaration of war to the wrong person? He snarled at me. Midoriya. Always Midoriya with you. And the lead has been upset. Rejoice mass media. This is just the sort of development you crave. Why, even those who are trailing behind are putting on spurts. If I don't hurry, I'll lose, I thought. As 𝗵𝗃𝗂 moved even further ahead of me, I reached out with my left, without activating my power, of course, and grabbed his upper arm, trying to pull him backwards. However, while they're pulling each 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐼 back, we effectively have two kids in the lead. The commentary said, "All eyes on us." 𝗵𝗃𝗂 swiping back. A hit of ice on him to try and slow him down, but I was still behind him. He could glide over the mines without even paying attention to them, but I had to step carefully. Then from behind us came an explosion, one far bigger than any I'd heard before. From the small mines, or from 𝗵𝗃𝗂, a gigantic blast of energy like a bomb had gone off. A giant explosion near HT entrance. Why was that bang so big? Was it his plan or sheer coincidence? I turned. 𝗵𝗃𝗂 turned with me and saw who they meant. Damn it, while I was focused elsewhere, he was soaring right at us like a bullet from a gun, riding on top of the explosion and a broken piece of metal he must have ripped from the robots before. Class A's Midoriya mounts his charge using shock waves. Mike continued to call out. Midoriya was coming straight at us. No time to move, no time to even register what had happened. Because he overtook them, the lead is his. Mike was right. He'd beaten us now, but the game wasn't over yet. You haven't won. Not yet. DAKU, screamed 𝗵𝗃𝗂, blasting over my head and aiming straight for him. Don't you dare go ahead of me. I had no choice. I had to use it. It'll open up the path behind me if I do this, but this isn't the time to worry about me. The ice platform was my only choice to catch up to them. The two who were formerly in the lead have stopped tripping each 𝗒𝗋 up and begun to bolt after Midoriya. They say it takes a common enemy to put a hold on Strife. Though Strife will never totally disappear, right? Midoriya was slowly falling in front of us, his momentum slowing down. At this rate, I can pass him, I thought. I haven't lost this yet. He was falling almost in between me and 𝗵𝗃𝗂, as we were neck and neck, Midoriya falling upside down in between us and looking panicky. Your big trick only got you so far. You didn't think ahead enough, I thought. I wasn't paying enough attention myself, because he was ahead of me. He was standing in seconds on my back. And on 𝗵𝗃𝗂's, standing as if riding us, as if using your backs like a pair of skies, and slamming his piece of robot onto the ground between us to set off the mines. I had to duck from the explosion. And when I looked again, Midoriya had pulled ahead once more. In no time at all, Midoriya blew dust in their eyes. And now he's cleared the landmine area entirely. Damn it, 𝗂𝗧𝗍𝗄, your class is insane. What are you teaching them? I didn't do anything. This is all the fruit of the fires they lit in each other. I kept moving. Had to overtake him. Midoriya's back was receding further and faster into the distance, towards the finish line that was the entryway back into the stadium. He was disappearing as I went with all the ice I had, running neck and neck with 𝗵𝗃𝗂 and barely beginning to overtake him. But whoever could have predicted this outcome when the trial began? The one who returned to HTE Stadium is none other than Midoriya. His will be a name to know. Damn it, damn it, damn it. I'd made it back in just a step or two in front of 𝗵𝗃𝗂. I was cold and out of breath as he panted furiously behind me. Damn it, again. I heard him swear in horror. I watched Midoriya. He stood towards the center of the ring, all eyes upon him. The whole stadium watching him. Todoroki, I'll be aiming for the top two. He'd said those words to me. I'd seen the fire in his eyes, the determination. And yet, I had assumed. I had foolishly just thought that the man I'd decided to challenge as a rival would roll over and be defeated. One event in, and I had lost. I was in second place alone. Always second best. Midnight announced. The 42 at the top have earned the right to advance. I'm sorry for the kids who failed, but take heart. The festival's showstopper is still being prepared. And now for the post-preliminaries, the final selection. From here on out, even the press corps will team in a white heat of excitement, so go all out. Now then, on to today's heart-pounding second event. I already know what it will be, but the suspense is killing me. And what will it be? Behold, The sign displayed said human cavalry battle. You can all form 2-4-person teams freely and form a horseback configuration. Basically, it's the same rules as a normal human cavalry battle. Swipe enemy riders' headbands and guard your own, except for one thing. Everyone will receive points based on their performance in the last trial, which means the point value of each team will change based on who's in it, said Ishido. Don't interrupt, yelled Midnight. But yes, that's right. And the number of points you're worth will be 5 points if you placed 42nd, 10 if you placed 41st, 15th for 40th, and so on, with the exception of first place, whose head is worth 10 million. As if a collective whole, we all turned to look at him at these words. If you were to head for him, this will be the chance for the rest to supplant him. Midoriya looked absolutely terrified, sweating and nervous as though hit just now with the pressure of being number one. Those who reach TH top merely encounter fresh new hardships, and the kids who have enrolled here will hear it countless times. Plus Ultra. The time limit is 15 minutes. The point value of each group's headband is worth the total point accumulation of each of the horse's members. The one to wear the headband will be the rider. Think of them as a standard bearer. Until time is up, you'll all be fighting and stealing as many of each other's headbands as you can. You may not equip your headband on any area besides above your neck. As more and more headbands are taken, maintaining control of the situation will become more and more demanding. And the most important aspect of the game is that even if you should lose your headband or break configuration, you're still not out of the game. Quirks are of course allowed, continued Midnight, so I want to see some fine brutality out there. That being said, this is still just a human cavalry game. If you attack any other group to break them up on purpose, that's a read card and you'll be forced to sit out the rest of the game. Alright, you now have 15 minutes. Start your team-ups. Right away, my mind flew into action. I knew who I wanted for my team. Firstly, Yaoyorozu, I said, finding her as quickly as possible and only hoping she hadn't already been taken. Are you taken? No, she said, and it seemed like she was smiling a little. I would be honored to join your team, Todoroki. Good, that's a start. I turned to find Kaminari, who wasn't far away, to recruit. Join me, I said simply, and he nodded, looking excited. Yaoyorozu, hey, we're on the same team again, he called, joining her as I strode forward to my third choice. I had to be quick on the draw here to snag him, if I wanted to beat Midoriya to the punch. 𝐒𝐫, the class representative, the speedster. The reason I chose all of you is because I think this is the battle formation with the best balance. Kaminari, you're on the left. You'll send out some sparks to make sure the enemy never gets too close. Yaoyorozu, you're on the right. You'll be making us an insulator sheet, plus whatever defense and mobility you can provide. 𝐒𝐫, you're at the front with your engine power. You'll be our physical defense as well. And Todoroki, you can feint your attacks by using either ice or heat, right? Asked 𝐒𝐫. No, I said quickly. I looked over to the stands, where surely he was watching me, and saw him there, fire across his face. While in combat, I'll never ever use my left side. As we spoke, a voice called out 𝐒𝐫's name, the familiar voice from Midoriya. He had joined up with Uraraka already, and didn't seem to realize 𝐒𝐫 was already taken. I watched as the two of them dragged 𝐒𝐫 away and tried to guess his strategy. With Uraraka's floating power, his team could stay airborne, making it very difficult to catch up to him. But Uraraka had a limit on how long or how much she could float, so that strategy wouldn't work in the long run. 𝐒𝐫 would perhaps, from his perspective, prove useful for his speed, but as he returned to my team, it wasn't clear what else Midoriya was going to do. You're not going to win this one, Midoriya, I thought. This time it's my turn. Now time's up. Raise your war cries and fire HD's signal, boomed Mike's voice. Let's start the countdown. 3. We'd assembled. I was standing on their hands, one hand on 𝐒𝐫's shoulder, and my eyes on the only target, Team Midoriya. He'd added Takoyami, the boy with the dark shadow quirk, and a girl I didn't recognize from another class, to complete his horse. They were all wearing some kind of support gear. I'd formed a long-form strategy ... but without knowing that girl's quirk or assets, Team Midoriya was going to be hard to predict. 2, 1, go. An all-out rush began towards Team Midoriya. Every team in the yard was targeting him all at once. Now? Asked Kaminari. Wait, I replied. As we watched, just like I'd predicted, Team Midoriya took off and was airborne, though assisted by the support gear, as well as by Uraraka's float quirk. Thanks to Dark Shadow, there was pretty much no touching them. They landed and were assaulted again, parried, moved, dodged, went airborne again, only to dodge an attack from Bakugo. Once again, Dark Shadow countered. Havaluke, ladies and gentlemen. Not even 2 minutes have elapsed, and already we have a melee of tumultuous proportions on our hands. Anywhere you rest your eyes, there's 2 teams vying for and stealing each other's headbands. After all, it's a fine strategy to aim for 2 ND to 4th place instead of the big 10 million. That's right, whether it's the first place who's being chased, row the rest of Class A, now doing the chasing. This here's a veritable congregation of top dogs. Let's briefly confirm that by checking 𝗧𝗏 point values. There was a gasp. Whoa, damn, just 1 second. You mean Classa aren't taking it by a mile? Well, apart 𝗵𝗲 Midoriya and Bakugo, what happened? I could see that Midoriya, who had landed again, was watching Bakugo's team. His eyes fixed on that one rival, the one he was always thinking of, as Class 1B's teams seemed to have him cornered. Big mistake, Midoriya, I thought, echoing in my mind the same words Bakugo had said to me before. You've declared war on the wrong person. Our team stood in his way. Guess we won't be getting such an easy ride after all. Huh, murmured Midoriya as we faced each other off. The time has come, I murmured, to my team as much as to Midoriya. I'll be taking that. In the midst of Class B's ascendance, the title fight comes to the fore. Upon whose head shall rest those 10 million points? Called out Mike. I faced him now. I'd underestimated you before. That won't happen again. He had locked eyes with me, a stern and steady glare to match mine. My rival, Ida, I told him. Advance. Got it, he replied. Ieyasu, I told her. Prepare our guard and conductor. On it, she said promptly. Kaminari, I concluded. Yeah, man, I know, he said with a grin. Hang tight. Guarded by Ieyasu's newly created shield, we were blocked from the indiscriminate discharge, which was released all around us to freeze the surrounding teams in place, the others heading for Team Midoriya. Unfortunately, Tokoyami's Dark Shadow was able to guard their team from the discharge, preventing the plan from working quite perfectly. There's less than 6 minutes left on the clock, I said, as Ieyasu handed me the grounding rod she created to enact the completion of our plan. There's no going back. Dangerous for the other teams. They were still people and classmates after all. Sorry about this. Just endure it for a little while, I said, as I unleashed my ice along to the ground alongside Ieyasu's creation. The skate she and the other two were wearing, keeping our team from being frozen alongside the others. What's this? Announced Mike. Todoroki held back the mob of horses in one fell swoop. He used Kaminari's electricity to stop everyone firmly in their tracks so he could be sure to freeze them all, chimed in Mr. Aizawa. He's looking back on the obstacle race, where too many were able to dodge his ice for his liking. Nice commentary, called Mike. We 𝐶𝐿'd in past the other teams and I took a moment to grab the headband from one of Class 1B's students. I'll be taking these, I said swiftly as we charged on ahead towards Team Midoriya. Dark Shadow went on the offensive attack, swooping in towards us. Ieyasu, I called, as she put up a shield in between the incoming creature's hands, just in time to stop it. From a distance, it looked like Midoriya was starting to get nervous. The ice around us provided an excellent barrier, meaning that nobody could get in. We were the only team that could end up with the 10 million. Down to just the two of us now. We headed forward towards him. He moved then, suddenly with confidence, to my left. There's only about a minute left, and Todoroki has set HDE field. All that's left now is taking those 10 million points. It'll be swiped in an instant. Or so I might have thought 5 minutes ago. But Midoriya has kept away during all that time, even in this constricted space. Again we moved, and again, infuriatingly, Midoriya moved out of my range. He always puts his distance to my left. He's seen through me. Now, even if I use ice for a short distance, I'll catch Ida. And if I use it recklessly, I'll be ruining my own chances. Kaminari's lightning can be fended off by Tokoyami. Only a minute left. I saw him, eyes locked on me, deadly calm. Damn you, guys, said Ida. We have less than a minute. I'm afraid I'll be useless after this, so I'm counting on you. Ida, I asked. Hold on tight, he said. Take it, Todoroki. Torque over 𝗂𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 life, faster than I had thought possible before this. I had enough of my wits about me to reach out. As we flew past Midoriya's team, so fast they seemed to stand still in comparison, to reach out and snatch it from atop his head. The 10 million points, my hand just brushing across his wild green hair as the headband came to me, and we sped to a halt like a car. What happened? In an instant. 𝐲𝐻𝗔𝗂𝐃 in the prelims, said Mike, and agreeing with him I asked what was that. I can forcibly rev up my torque to explosive proportions if need be, said Ida. However, as kickback, I'll suffer from engine stall in short order. That was the trick up my sleeve I had never told my classmates. He turned to smile at Team Midoriya. I thought I told you. Midoriya, he called out, I'm challenging you. Mike announced the back and forth has ended and the one having the last laugh is Team Todoroki, with the 10 million. And Midoriya has crashed down to 0. Midoriya wasn't standing still. His team was running towards us, and I remembered what Ida had said, that he couldn't move after using this special move. We were stuck in place. We had all the headbands, and we couldn't move anymore. Midoriya was heading for us at an unprecedented speed and had lifted his arm. There was a passion in his eyes, a terrifying determination as though he were about to destroy me. My heartbreak skipping up in terror, I realized what he was about to do. That power of his, that arm-destroying full-power quirk, I'd only seen him use in offense once before. When he'd blown up an entire building with a single punch, he was aiming straight at me. Without even thinking, I threw up my left arm in front of me and activated my left-hand side. I hadn't used it since I was very young, a child, a week or so before the burn. Since then I had never used my flames for anything except a dissolving agent on the ice, never to attack. They activated, perhaps, without my even realizing it. A reflex of sheer terror as Midoriya's arm came at me. He didn't hit me. He didn't unleash the full force on me, simply swatted his hand in front of my face, creating air pressure that threw me off balance. I turned to stare at my own body, reacting on instinct. What am I doing? Midoriya had grabbed a headband from around my neck, but not the 10 million ... He'd simply grabbed the one on top, perhaps assuming that was the right one. Pull yourself together, Todoroki, Ida told me. That was too close. We switched the order, just in case, Ieyasu was saying to Midoriya. That was naive, Midoriya. It's nearly over. Now for the countdown. Everybody say hey, cried Mike's voice. As the countdown began, Midoriya was headed for us once again. 10, 9, 8. Blasting through the other side of the ice came Team Bakugo. 7, 6. Ieyasu put up a guard for Kaminari's electricity as Team Midoriya flew our way again. 5, 4. Midoriya headed for us once more. Ieyasu trying to create something new. No time. Nothing to do. 3, 2, 1. Time up. At last, we could breathe again. Now shall we see who our top 4 are? In first place, Team Todoroki. As I dismounted, I murmured to myself, damn it. We'd won, but at what cost? I'd had to resort, it seemed, to using that damn firepower to win. In second place, Team Bakugo. In third place, Team Tetsu. Wait. Hey, it's Team Shinso. And in fourth place, Team Midoriya. I wasn't entirely sure how that had happened. It seemed Tokoyami had used the space Midoriya made to snatch the head and I'd taken from an earlier team, putting them into fourth place. The first 4 teams will move on to the final event. Now step forward. I said I'd never use it to attack. I made that promise to myself. But when I was driven into a corner, I can't let it go on like this. At this rate, that bastard will win. The event will be after an hour's lunch break. See you then. I went over to find him, before he could rejoin his friends and head into the cafeteria for lunch, tapped his shoulder, and drew him away to a corridor. You wanted to tell me something, he asked. What is it? I watched him, appraising. If my hunch was correct, if what I'd been guessing about him was true, then perhaps he might understand ... or maybe he would simply understand less. He looked around. If we dawdle, the mess hall will probably get really crowded. Then after a moment, he started sweating, looking nervous. I took a breath. You blindsided me, so much so that I broke my own pledge. Ida, Kaminari, Ieyasu, Tokoyami, Uraraka. None of them felt it. Only I did in that moment. After all, I was the only one there who had seen All Might's power up close. He looked scared now. So, what is it you went to say? I'm saying that what I felt from you was the same. It felt similar. Midoriya, are you really All Might's secret love child? It made sense to me. Similar powers. They looked nothing alike, acted nothing alike. But a genetic relation would explain the power similarity. Midoriya looked shocked, momentarily stunned, but not the shock of a man whose secret had been discovered. Why, you've got it wrong, he stuttered out, practically shaking back and forth. Well, of course, that's exactly what a secret son would say, so I get it if you don't believe me, but I swear that's not it. Actually, can I ask, why are you? Why me, he began, but I caught him off. The way you said that's not it. In other words, you do have some connection to All Might that you can't talk about, whatever that might be. I don't know why I said what I said then, but I felt like I had to say something. My father is the hero Endeavor. You must have heard of him. He's been the number 2 hero forever now. If you're connected to the number 1 hero, then that means I have even more reason to beat you. My old man will do anything to advance his position. He made a name for himself during his hero career, firing on all cylinders, but it was never enough to outpace All Might, an unremovable might in his eyes. And because he knew he could never hack it by his own power, he devised a plan. What are you talking about, Todoroki? Said Midoriya. What is it you're telling me, exactly? You know about quirk marriages, right? I asked him. After the phenomenon started, it came into the picture during the 2nd, 3rd generation. Choosing mates solely to enhance one's own quirk, to be inherited down the line, and forcing marriages for that purpose. They were simply treated as old-fashioned arranged marriages. As a man of means and merit, my old man easily ingratiated himself to my mother's family, and got his hands on her quirk. All he wanted was to raise a hero to surpass All Might. I felt my rage rising, as it did every time I thought about it. Instinctively, I placed my hand on my left eye. Damn him, I'll never be a tool for that scumbag. In my memories, my mom is always crying. I remember she called my left side unbearable, before she poured boiling water on my face. The reason I challenged you is for the personal triumph. I won't use my damn old man's quirk. I'll become #1 without needing to. It'll be my total disavowal of him. Midoriya looked down at the ground. He seemed to have nothing to say in reply. I turned away to leave. If you can't tell me anything, that's fine. Keep your secret. I'll climb over you using only my right side. Sorry I took up your time. As I walked away, I heard him start following me. I've always had help with everything I've done. I turned back to face him. He didn't look angry or impassioned. Almost importunate. He went on, that was true earlier too. The reason I'm standing here is because someone always saved me. All Might. I want to be like him, and I need to become strong enough to accomplish that and become #1. It may seem like a trifling motive compared to yours, but all the same, I can't lose. Not only for myself, but to pay back the people who have helped me along the way. So I'll take that declaration of war of yours and echo it. I'm going to beat you too, he said, clenching his fist and looking me firmly in the eyes. I didn't really have anything else to say. I turned and left him there, thinking about what he'd said, that he'd been blessed by others and fought to be like All Might. I agreed with him. Really ... It did seem like a trifling motive compared to what I had to do. And yet, for such a small thing, he had still beaten me before, and kept overwhelming me. Midoriya. I'd told him everything about myself, and yet I still felt as though I understood nothing whatsoever about him. Before we get started with the final event, there's good news for those who dropped out of the preliminaries. In the end, this is still a sports festival, so to have everyone continue to be able to participate, we've got some recreational events in store. Just look how fired up those cheerleaders we called from America are. What's this? What are they even? What happened, Class A? The girls were all dressed in cheerleading costumes as well. Minato Kaminari, screamed Yaoyorozu. You tricked us, didn't you? She fell down and Uraraka patted her back. They really are idiots, cried Jiro. Well, we might as well do it until the true battle begins, said Hagakure. It's fine, isn't it? She continued as she practiced a cheer. All right everyone, compete your hearts out. Recreation, said Mike. And after that, the final event. From the 4 teams, 16 individuals have made it through. It's a tournament. We're pitting them against each other in one-on-one combat. So it's a tournament, said Kirishima. We'll be standing on the same stage we see on TV every year. Oh, was it a tournament last year, too? Said Ishido. I forget. The system changes a bit each year, said Zero. But typically there'll be similar one-on-one competitions. Last year it was more of a sports Chanbara style event. All right, said Midnight. Now I'll determine who fights whom through this lottery. Once the matchups are decided, we'll do a fun bit of recreation and then we'll commence. Whether or not the 16 who will be competing want to join in on the recreation activities is up to you, since I'm sure many of you will be wanting to take a breather or preserve your strength. So starting from the team that placed first, let's determine the order. Excuse me, sorry, said Ajiro, raising his hand. I'm sitting this one out. Ajiro, why? Cried everyone. This is the place to show yourself off to the pros. Truth is, I don't remember anything that happened during the human cavalry battle up until the very last seconds, he admitted. Probably due to that guy's quirk, the guy who'd been leading his team. I know it's my big chance, and I know it's stupid to throw it away, he continued. But this is the place everyone earned by clashing at their full power. I wouldn't feel right standing among you without even understanding how I got here. I just can't do it. Don't worry about it, said Hagakure. As long as you get results at this stage, it's fine. Yeah, it's not as though I put in the most stellar performance either, said Ishido. You don't understand, said Ajiro. This is my pride we're talking about here. I can't stand the thought of it. Also, why are you girls dressed like cheerleaders? I don't remember what happened either, said a boy from Class B. I want to abstain too. No matter how strong he may actually be, for a person who didn't sow anything to rise up would defeat the point of the festival. Man, you guys are super manly, said Kirishima. How callow, said Midnight. I'll have you know that greenhorns like you ... get all my love. I hereby recognize Shota and Ajiro pulling out. I wasn't quite sure what to make of this. In any case, 2 kids from Class B transferred in, and with 16, the matches were released. The first round would be between Midoriya and a name I didn't recognize. Mine was second, a match with Zero, the boy from my class with taping arms, which meant that if Midoriya won his first bout ... we'll face off faster than I anticipated. Give me everything you've got, Midoriya. I'll defeat you myself. Okay, let's put the tournament on hold for a moment and enjoy some recreation. Even though he said that, it was hard not to feel really stressed. I spent my time alone, outside by the trees. It hardly seemed like any time had passed. From inside the training room, I could hear Mike commentating before the first match started. Hey guys, are you ready? We've got a bunch in store for you. It's here that you will brawl. The rules are simple. The scuffle is won by ringing your opponent out, rendering them unable to move, or getting them to say I give. Feel free to wound. We have Recovery Girl waiting in Tay Wings. I hope you've left your sense of morals at the door. though you're not allowed to endanger each other's lives. Now let's start. It was enough to know that Midoriya was the winner. Not that I'd had any doubt. I was more interested in focusing on my upcoming match with 𝗧𝗏, though even then I wasn't especially worried about. As I left the prep room, an awful sight was waiting me in the hallway. Out of my way, I told my damned old man. You disgrace me, 𝗧𝗏, he said, standing there before me with his arms folded, glowering that awful look down his nose at me. If you had used the power in your left side, you could have crushed both the obstacle race and the cavalry battle easily. Your resistance is childish and tiresome. Stop screwing around and see to your duty to surpass All Might. Do you understand? You're different from your siblings. You're my greatest masterpiece. Every word you say is pissing me off more. Is that all you have to say? I will never use my left side. I'll win and advance using only Mom's quirk. Even if that works for you now, the old man promised, you'll reach the limit soon enough. I headed into the ring to face 𝗧𝗏, still clenching my fists and trying not to shake with rage. Sorry to keep you waiting, folks. Next up it's Taste 2. He's turned in an excellent performance to make it this far, and yet what's with that plain face? Does it come off? Hand to 𝗧𝗏 the hero course versus the one who stands at HD top of the top, almost too strong for his own good. From the same hero course, Shoto Todoroki. When the start buzzer rang, 𝗧𝗏 tossed tape at me and wrapped me in it, trying to throw me from the ring. A lightning-quick surprise assault aiming for a ring out. Almost without a doubt the best choice he could have made. Give it your all, 𝗧𝗏. Apologies, I said, as my foot connected with the ground, and every bit of Mom's ice quirk I could muster burst forth straight at 𝗧𝗏. A glacier-sized attack. A little much, don't you think? Shook 𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗏, can you move? Asked Midnight, who was frozen too. No, obviously not. 𝗧𝗏 has been immobilized. Don't mind, nice try, cheered those in the stands. I walked over to him. I'm sorry, I said, seeing him shaking and clearly in pain. I overdid it. I was angry as all. I placed my hand on his chest to dissolve the ice with heat, and as I did so, I couldn't help but feel terribly sad. The rest of the first round moved swiftly. Kaminari was easily defeated by a girl from Class 1B. It was used as a kind of billboard by a girl from the support course, who walked out of the ring at the end allowing him to advance. Ashido defeated Aoyama with an uppercut to the jaw. Round 6 was between Yaoyorozu and Takoyami. Offense and defense in one body. Announced Mike, the Dark Samurai accompanied by Dark Shadow. From the hero course, it's 𝗵𝗃𝐽𝐴𝐺𝑒𝑇𝑂KOYAMI versus All-Purpose Creation. She was admitted through recommendations, so her abilities are certified. From the hero course, Momo Yaoyorozu. 6th match start. Takoyami unleashed Dark Shadow on Yaoyorozu right away. She created a shield to block his attack, but it looked almost as though she had no backup plan in mind, like it was reactionary. Dark Shadow knocked the shield from her hand and she created another to withstand another attack. Then as he held for a moment, she'd created a staff, not realizing that. 𝐒𝐻𝗄𝗏 out of bounds, said Midnight. It looked as though she hadn't even noticed. The match had lasted less than a minute, and she'd lost. A completely overwhelming victory. Is it possible that Dark Shadow is the greatest quirk ever? Hiroshima and Tetsu were to fight next, and ended their match in a double knockout. The final match of round 3 would be between Bakugo and Uraraka. Squaring off in the ring, he looked noticeably much taller than her. It's the last match of HD first round, announced Mike, the boy who's been famous since middle school, but that's not a normal face. Bakugo Katsuki of the hero course versus the kid I quote am rooting for. Uraraka Ochako of the hero course. Way to be an impartial narrator, was my thought on the matter. Bakugo seemed to be saying something to Uraraka, but from our perspective nobody could hear them. Start, came Mike's announcement. Uraraka instantly started running straight at Bakugo, keeping her body close to the ground. Bakugo aimed a retaliating blast straight at her, throwing her back before she could touch him and float him out of bounds. The blast created smoking clouds, making it difficult to see what was going on. Bakugo seemed to spot Uraraka inside the cloud, and jumped forward to blast her, but had only grabbed her jacket, which she had floated in front of him to trick him. The actual Uraraka popped up right behind him, hand extended, ready to float him out of bounds once more. Wow, she made her jersey float as a decoy. Yo, she must have done that on the fly, cried out Mike, clearly thrilled that Uraraka was doing well. Bakugo tossed another explosion straight back at Uraraka, throwing her across the ring once more before she could float him. She ran back towards him again, keeping close to the ground, and once again he tossed an explosion in her face. Repeated over and over. The reaction of the crowd, I sensed, was a feeling of horror at Uraraka getting tossed around, with little to no sense of triumph for Bakugo's success. It really seemed pretty hopeless for her. Why didn't she just accept the defeat? She was no match for Bakugo's power. She's pressing on her charge without a moment's rest. But, seeing this, said Mike, clearly disappointed that his favorite was going to lose. The pros in the crowd were shaking their heads at Bakugo, much like they'd pitied 𝗧𝗏 after I'd overwhelmed him. Yo, you sure it's okay to let it go on like this? This looks terrible. They were shouting at 𝗵𝗲𝗏, the referee. Yet again Bakugo blew her across the ring. This time a pro stood up to shout at him. Hey, do you mean to be a hero with conduct like that? If your strength level is that much bigger, just blow her out of bounds already. How dare you toy with a girl like that? And the stands stand to boo him, cried Mike, as the pros were yelling more and more at Bakugo. Yeah, I've gotta say I aggro. Huh, you elbowed me, what are you? His voice was cut off by Sensei's. Who said he's toying with her? You a pro? How many years? If you said that in your right mind, then there's no meaning for you to keep watching. Do us all a favor and go home. I'd suggest looking into another career. Huh, what on earth was he saying? Bakugo's fierceness is an acknowledgement of his opponent's strength. He knows she deserves to have made it this far, and he's staying on guard because of that. It's because he's doing everything in his power to win that he's refusing to let his guard down or stay his hand. The whole thing seemed to turn on a dime then. Suddenly, we weren't watching a Goliath tossing around a helpless David girl. Then, it became just another match between classmates and equals. And while we'd been distracted, 𝗧𝗏 placed her fingers together in her usual gesture of release. Floating above us and falling down rapidly were chunks of the ring, the pieces that Bakugo had blown up as he'd attacked back, and which 𝗧𝗏 had been floating the entire time with every shot she had. What we'd been missing, what none of us had seen, was that she'd had a plan the whole time. A meteor shower, cried Mike. Indeed, the fragments rained down, and it looked as though Bakugo was going to be flattened against all odds. 𝗧𝗏 ran towards him, hand held out, ready to float him, and with one shot, he blew up the entire shower into smithereens. Whoa, I thought to myself, watching pretty stunned as everything turned again. He must be content with himself, with that explosive showing, cried Mike. He took 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗃𝐴's secret stratagem and crushed it. 𝗧𝗏 had been blown across the ring, but not out. She was slowly standing up, but her body was shaking. Bakugo ran towards her, getting ready to retaliate again, but this time, she fell down, her energy spent. He stayed, ready to fight her, until the very last moment, when midnight announced, 𝗧𝗏 is unable to move. Bakugo advances to the next round. 𝗧𝗏 was taken to Recovery Girl. Oh, 𝗧𝗏. Oh yeah. Bakugo moves on to round 2, said Mike, impartial as ever. All right, now that I've collected myself, the first round is now over. We'll get back to it after a short break. It was time, then. I left for the waiting room to prepare myself for my greatest obstacle. Round 2. My fight with Izuku Midoriya. We stood in the ring, facing each other. So All Might's got his eyes on you, huh? You came, I murmured as I watched him. And now for this go-round of the sports festival. Both competitors are at the top of their class, and the world ain't big enough for the both of them. Todoroki versus Midoriya. But Shoto, you do want to be a hero, don't you? When did I forget what came after that? Round 2 of the sports festival. My match with Izuku Midoriya. If he can unleash that power as much as he wants, then I'm in trouble. He'll start with a counter, so rationally, as soon as the starting bell goes off. Start. I let off a full blast of ice straight at him. No good holding back at all. With the snap of a finger, Midoriya unleashed a pretty staggering amount of energy, smashing straight through the ice I'd unleashed on him and blasting me back hard enough that if I hadn't set up an ice barrier behind me, I'd have indeed been blasted out of the ring. Just as I thought. He's prepared to injure himself to counteract me. Oh, he broke right through, came Present Mike's cry. Well, he can't keep that up forever. Best keep right on attacking. Another ice wall straight at Midoriya. You've only got so many fingers to break. Watch me, old man. Watch me win against this powerful hero with nothing but mom's power. Once more, a smash, and my ice destroyed and blasted to bits, and another finger of Midoriya's broken. And there goes another, cried Mike. Damn it, I thought as I straightened up from being blasted against the ice wall. Midoriya had countered me almost easily, but it was obvious he was in a hell of a lot of pain. And yet, there was a very strange look on his face, almost angry, offended. You, I murmured. Irritating, frustrating. I blasted off at him again. And once again he blasted backwards, making this an endurance battle. I demanded. I'll end this soon, don't you worry. I struck with ice and again, he countered. All the fingers on his right hand were done now. More ice then. More and more. I ran towards him, the ice overwhelming him. Todoroki closes in without so much as flinching from Midoriya's power, commented Mike. I jumped from the ice straight at him, ready to move fast enough to stop him from using that power again. Punched the ground and threw more ice at him as it started to cover his foot. He seemed cornered, and this time made a fist and used his whole arm. Everything was blasted out of bounds with an explosion. compared to before. He's really putting his teeth into his blows. Like he's warning me not to get close, I murmured to myself as I just barely avoided a ring out with the ice. Midoriya's whole left arm was broken. I saw as I shivered and stood up. All you're doing is running and defending. And you're already this beaten up? I asked, looking at him with something close to pity. I'm sorry, Midoriya. And thanks to you, I added, glancing into the stands to see how angry my old man looked. That damn man's face is looking grim. With your hands in that state, the match is over. Let's wrap this up. One more ice blast would be enough to send him out of bounds. And Todoroki presses his relentless assault. Another freeze attack for the clinching. Where the hell are you looking? Midoriya screamed at me, like an angry hiss. Not the words of a man being cornered by an oncoming ice wall. Smash! I was blasted back this time. Another blast from Midoriya, destroying my ice and nearly pushing me out of bounds. You damn. I could barely stagger out as I pulled myself up from my ice to stare at him. You did this with your already broken finger. Why are you going this far? I asked. Why would you do this to yourself? You're shivering, Todoroki, he hissed at me. The look on his face was one I'd never seen him wear before. He was angry, furious, actually, almost frightening. Quirks are just another function of the body. So you must have a limit to how much of your cold you can endure, right? Which would mean that if you just use the heat from your left side, then there's no problem for you, right? He seemed to scream in a primal gasp of rage. Everybody's giving it their all. To win, to reach their goals, to becoming number one. You say you're gonna with half your strength. Look at me, Todoroki. You haven't been able to put a single scratch on me yet. And somehow, he formed his broken, bleeding, purple bruised hand into a fist. So come at me with all you've got. He screamed. What do you think you're doing? Was all I could say. All my full power. Did my damn old man pay you off? Now I'm mad. At close range, any reaction should be delayed. I started running at him, meaning to close the gap. Midoriya suddenly moved. The second I raised my left leg. Damn him. He was glowering, warming up, winding up, and he punched me in the stomach. Not with his full power, just an adequate dose of it, enough to wind me and blast me across the ring. Ew, and a bitter blow on a brittle body. Bet you all felt that one. Damn it, I was choking and coughing in pain. Wrapped my hand around my stomach and tried not to vomit as I faced what seemed to be a half-mad hurricane blowing me away. Why? I threw, almost defensively, another blast of ice at him. Your ice power is weakening, he said, and blasted again, out of fingers. Too broken. No way he could do anything. I blasted again. This is my chance. He jammed his thumb inside his cheek and blasted off at me again. I want to be like him, and for that, I need to become number one. Compared to what drives you, it might be a trifling motivation. Why are you going this far? I begged him. I want to live up to people's expectations. He told me as he ran back at me. I want to be able to answer with a smile. I want to become a super cool hero. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Her voice came back to me. That's why everyone's giving it their all. He screamed, head-butting me in the chest. I can't even begin to understand your circumstances or your resolution. But even so, now I think the idea that you'll become number one without using your full strength, then I don't think you're serious about denying him everything. It all came back to me. Stand up. If this is all it takes to make you fall, then you can forget about beating All Might or even a small-time villain. He'd beaten me into vomiting. She placed her protective hand on my back. Please stop. He's only 5. No, he's already 5. Don't get in my way. And he punched her. Shut up, I told Midoriya. I hate this, Mommy. I don't ever want to be like Dad. I don't want to be like someone who bullies Mommy. But you still want to be a hero, right? It's okay, 𝗧𝗵𝗲. If you have a strong vision for your future, that's why. I'm gonna win, he told me, punching me, throwing me back. I'm gonna surpass you. Stop that peeking, 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Those things, your older brothers are people who inhabit a different world from you. Mom, I think I might be going crazy. I can't take it anymore. Every day, the kids, they get more and more like him. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. That child's left side sometimes looks hideous to me. I can't take care of him anymore. If I raise him now, it'll be bad. Mommy. She looked at me. Where's Mommy? She hurt my masterpiece, so I had her put away. I told her, this is the critical time. I hate you. It's your fault. I hate him. I'll do whatever it takes. I could barely begin to stagger to my feet now. I was so exhausted. My father, it's yours. It's your power, isn't it? Midoriya screamed at me. It's true that quirks are inherited by blood from parent to child. But what's really important is not that connection, but rather your own flesh and blood. It's yours and yours alone. And recognizing is part of the reason I always say, I am here. See, but you do still want to be a hero, right? It's okay, 𝗧𝗵𝗲. You aren't a slave to your blood. You can be the man you want to be. I was almost crying as my left side, almost unconsciously, burst into fire. Even though you want to win, got it, going out of your way to help your enemy. Which one of us is screwing around now? I asked him. I am gonna be a hero. And against all odds, I smiled. SHOUTO. That damn old man's voice came from the stands. So you've finally accepted yourself, have you? Good, excellent. Now is your true beginning. You who holds my blood, surpass me, and realize my ambition in yourself. I couldn't stop crying. And Mr. Endeavor with a very sudden pep talk. Must be quite HD doting dad, came Mike's comment. I wiped my tears away and looked back at Midoriya. Against all odds, he was smiling. Wow, he said. What are you smiling about? With wounds like those, in your current situation, you're absolutely nuts. Don't blame me for what happens yet. And both of us went all out. Him with every bit of punching power. Me with both sides. The ice and fire canceling each other out. It was the biggest inferno of power and danger I'd ever been in. But even as I held up my left hand to fight Midoriya and finally, if I could, win, I wasn't thinking about the match really. I was thinking about how he'd said to use every bit of power I had. How my power was my own. Midoriya, thank you. The explosion destroyed my ability to see anything around me. My clothes had burned off of me and I looked around, trying to see Midoriya. What was that? What the hell even is your homeroom class, dude? The heat other cooled down air which then expanded. So that's how he made such a fiery wind blast. Damn, that's hot. And I can't see a thing. Just who won this match? Midoriya was standing ... Then he was slumping. Against Midoriya is out of bounds. Todoroki advances to the third round.